In order to benefit all sentient beings, let's give rise to bodhicitta. We'll continue with the path instruction of daily meditation practice with the visualization of Shakyamuni Buddha. We in total use about 4 classes, and today is the last class of this teaching. Tomorrow I will give teaching of Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. That's the plan for tomorrow. For those of you who can't study the words of my perfect teacher first, I think it will be best for you to start with words, letter to a friend. I will give the oral transmission. Can you hear me? Letter to a friend. Mainly, I will give you the oral transmission and will receive the wisdom from Nagarjuna, and this is an auspicious condition to do so. The translations will be provided. On Sunday, I will give teaching on the practice of Vajrasattva. I'll give you teaching on that. On 12, 13, 14, 11, 12, 13, 14, I will also give teachings, some short teachings on preliminary practices, as well as some other short teachings. I think lots of our Sangha members over here, they've studied it before, but I still decided to give teaching on those because I think it will be quite helpful for those lay practitioners. Now, I think majority of people do attach great importance to the preliminary practices and some very simple practices. And there are people who continue to have great longing to study the Dharma. That's very good. Just as a disciple of the Buddha asked the Buddha, saying that what kind of mentality we should have in listening to the Dharma. And the Buddha said that you should listen with the kind of intention of longing as the ocean. It is the best that you have this longing, continue to have this kind of longing. It is good to feel content with the worldly life and not searching for too much material gains, but it is the best to have that kind of longing always towards listening to the Dharma. Tomorrow, we will have the chanting beforehand, and from 10th onwards, the chanting would be rather shorter, as well as the classes would be shorter as well. So let's continue with the classes. We talked about the merit of Shakyamuni Buddha and the practice of Shakyamuni Buddha. I think lots of people, after listening to this particular teaching, many people told me that they had a lot more faith towards Shakyamuni Buddha now. I know many people probably studied it before, but they didn't really attach great importance to this teaching. So upon hearing this kind of feedback, I myself feel really, really happy because it feels that my students are now really receiving these blessings from this teaching as well as from Shakyamuni Buddha. So this kind of faith is definitely the genuine blessings. Therefore, I really think that after this past few days classes, including there are practitioners who stayed here for over 10 or 20 years, they really felt that the devotion and faith that they have towards the Buddha is much greater before. And some people told me that it is that only I myself have a great interest towards the biography of Shakyamuni Buddha, but now after hearing this teaching, I feel that this is quite important teaching, and I understand why you have such great attachment or interest with this biography. Another teaching that's Phuntsog Rinpoche's teaching. Phuntsog Rinpoche was giving teaching at Halifax at Trungpa Rinpoche's center in Halifax back in 1993. That the teaching was recorded, and in that teaching, Phuntsog Rinpoche gave that teaching for 2 hours. He talks about the faith towards Buddha and the Dharma. Now that video is now transcribed as well as translated and subtitled. So in the second half of the year, I really hope that you can study it carefully because this is quite important. Just as how for the worldly people, when there are important messages to be sent from the management level, then all the employees should listen to it. Just like that, Phuntsog Rinpoche had really important message and such a great presentation that he taught 20 years ago. Now this is transcribed and this is then written down into words. Therefore, I really hope that all of you could take the opportunity to study it not only the words but also the meaning behind each word. And I really hope that you could then write your review of that class. This is really just a preview because this is not really ready yet. But in the second half of the year, then I really hope that you can study it then. Let's now continue with our classes, the classes on this pith instruction of daily meditation. This is the last part of it. Yesterday we talked about how after the blessings of Shakyamuni Buddha and practicing in this particular practice, you can see there are different insights or different kind of experiences that you can see inside of your dreams as well as different lights. And today it's about the time of death. When people are facing death, there are people who die out of desperation, and there are people who die. There are people who die with a sense of desperation, desperately grasping towards life with great suffering. And there are practitioners who die with a sense of grace. And over here it says that although there are many different bodhisattva practices for the time of death, including the 11 concepts taught in the sutra, the crucial point is taught and contained in the Noble Wisdom of Passing Sutra. These 11 practices, I think a little while ago when I was going through the Tibetan version of Tripitaka, I remembered of reading it, but now I really can't retrieve where it is now. It was really well done. It's such wonderful teaching. At that time, I saw that inside of that sutra, which is not translated into Chinese. I really wanted to translate it, but now I really can't remember at this moment. And it's also taught and contained in the Noble Wisdom of Passing Sutra. At that time, in fact, I think I translated it back in 2017. It's really short. And back in 2017, and this particular teaching is with great importance in many different traditions. And it is said that during the time of Padmasambhava, he brought one of these sutra. He brought this sutra to the noble family, and is called the 5 Noble Family Sutras. This sutra is translated into over 10 different languages, including English, French, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish, and Thai. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche from Tibetan Buddhism, he also propagated and promoted this sutra and advised people to study it. So, this Noble Wisdom of Passing Sutra is very important. Why is that? Maybe it's because Tsochum Ditsen, the king, attached great importance to this particular sutra, and because the noble family really placed great importance to it, therefore it then was taken great care of. There is the catalog that is the catalog that has different sutras that's translated from Chinese into Tibetan language. But later on, lots of those sutras are no longer available or are no longer found in the Chinese language anymore, but it is in Tibetan language, and later on it was then propagated through the Tibetan language because it's translated into many other different languages. I found it out of the Tripitaka, and I went to an old Lama and asked him to give me oral transmission, and he said, "Oh, I can recite it," and then he recited it right on the spot. So this Noble Wisdom of Passing Sutra is quite important, and you can see how the practitioners really attach great importance to it. I think the English version, nowadays they have like 5 or 6 different versions. Nowadays, people don't really attach great importance to the Dharma, rather they attach great importance to hot pots, to good meal. But when it comes to translating sutras, it's not really that important to them. Anyhow, this Noble Wisdom of Passing Sutra is already taught and translated, and over here it then talks about how during the time of death, the Bodhisattva meditated on the wisdom of passing as follows.
就是已经明确步入这个死亡的这个时候就是这个境
Whenever
地
you
的时
think
候
I'm
那么
dying,
我们应该观想
visualizing
自己的头
the
顶上呢，本是释迦牟尼
Guru
佛安住
Shakyamuni Buddha
要做到这一
on the
点，
crown
必
of
须
your
要
head
以
and
蒙昧的
generating
信心
intense
专
faith.
注它。
So at that
就
time,
是
you
这
have
个
to have
这个
great
后面也会
intense
讲
faith and
我
then
们每个人都是
focus
确实这个
one-pointedly.
离开这个世界的，离开世界
At
的
the
时候，有
time
些
of
人
death,
是可能长期这个受这个疾病的这种疾病的煎熬，
maybe
就然后这样
there
的
are
人
people
这
who
个时候可能
have
观想
suffered
活动
a
比较容易
lot
一点。有些人呢
before
可能就是发生
dying,
什么车祸
maybe because of
发生什么这
cancer
个
or
地
some
震
kind
就
of
开销
illness. They
甚至
suffer
可
a
能
lot,
突
so
然的
it's
一个
very
疾病
difficult for them to
就
focus.
当下就到
But
下去了
and
就
there
那
are
种的话
people
可能
maybe
没办法观想。但是如果自己有这
maybe
种机会，
lost
自己也
their
觉得
life
啊，
because of
现在我的
earthquake,
思想
because of
思想
tsunami
已
and so
经这
on,
个
and
出
they
现了，
just
就是
lost
肯
their
定
life
是马上要
in
会死的。那么这个时候
in
呢，你
one
就可以
moment,
观
and
这
maybe
个
there
在
is
自
no
己的
time
头
for
顶
them
上
to
释迦牟尼
visualize
佛的
Shakyamuni
话，那
Buddha
就
on the
非常重
crown
要。
of
这个
their
是
head.
其实今天
But
我们讲的
for
这个是渐变一
others
些，每
who
个修行人
dying,
经济不是很
who
高
have
的
a
人
period of
呢，也
time
可以
to
能做
focus
得到
and
的。
to
所以在
practice
座的人呢，
before their
我觉
actual
得还
death,
是
I think it's quite
应该是
possible.
有这个收获的。
Because you definitely
那么要
will
而
at
且
that
要
time
蒙
to
蒙
sense
蔽的这种
that
信
death
心
is
来专
coming.
注，
So
这
at
就
that
是
time
释迦
you
牟尼
should
佛
then
或者释
focus
迦牟尼佛
one-pointedly
就
with
在我
great
这个
faith
顶上
and
这样
visualize
想
that Shakyamuni
然后
Buddha
接
is
下
sitting
来
on
呢，
the
应该
crown
怎
of
么
your
样思
head.
维呢？要
So
思维这
what's
个一切
next?
万法都是无常的，就是
Then
当我们遇到死亡的时候呢，不能就是啊，
think
就
in
是
such a
心特
way,
别
saying
着
that it
急
is
啊，
not
就是
only
痛
me,
苦啊，然后这个呼唤呐，就是这样没有意义的。就是
do
这个时候
not
怎么
cry
想呢？
out
应该这样
loud,
观
do
想
not
啊，就是
then feel
不独自
really
自己一个人
anxious
呢，
and
就是就会这个
fearful,
死亡的啊，
because at
而
that
所
time
有
it's
的
the
众
best
生
to
呢，这
just
个都是难
just
逃这个死
contemplate
亡
on
这个规律啊。
impermanence
我们
and
在
think
这个
that
轮
all
回当
sentient
中，就
beings
如
are
今的这个
subject
轮回当中呢，我也好，
to
其他众
death,
生呢，虽然这个经历
to the
无
law of
数的
death,
这种
no
生
one
死
is
流转，
exempt.
但是
Although we have
除了这个感
repeatedly
受这个生
undergone
死和痛
countless
苦以外
birth
的
and
话呢，
death here in
从来没
samsara,
有
we
这
have
个与
only
死亡
ever
任
known
何
the
意义。
suffering of
就是
death,
我们
and
大
all
多
these
数的
births
众
have
生
been
生生
entirely
死生
devoid
生
of
死死，一
meaning.
直是在
All
轮
of
回当
the
中不
sentient
断的
beings
这个就是起起
continuously
落落
to
的
wander
扭
in
转
this
啊，就是不
samsara,
断的
ups
去扭
and
转。但
downs
是每
all
一个
the
扭转的
time.
话呢，
But
也许
in
在这个轮回
each
当中
of the
又这个
rebirths,
死了，又生了，
they
又死
will
了，这样
die。again
其实我们
in
的死
such
亡
a
都是并
rebirth
没有
and
就
then
是解决
reborn
大的
again.
问题，就是一
So
直是在扭转。
So
那么这次的话
giving
呢，
birth
我应该
and
是要这个立正
being
是死
born
亡呢，
and
就是都有这个价
dying
值和
really
意义
never
啊，我应该想
brought
尽办法，
any
我这次的
meaning.
死亡呢，
But now
就
I will
是
make sure
要
that
有
this
这个意
present
义，
death
要有
of
意
mine
义是
is
什么呢？
meaningful.
就是您死的时候就是观
What
这
does
个
that
佛
mean?
陀，
It
或者说是
means
观
that
这个
at
无
that
常，
time,
这
at
个
the
很
time
重
of
要的。
death, you
我
should
们可
then
能在座的各位
think,
也学过了，
contemplate
地藏本
about
愿经呢，地
impermanence,
藏本
and
愿
then
经当中讲，
also
您
visualize
死
the
的时候呢，
Buddha.
就是如果
I
如
think
果
lots
观
of
那
you
个
probably
佛
studied the
啊、
Sutra
菩
of
萨
Kshitigarbha's
啊
Great
这样的话，
Aspiration,
还有呢
where it
甚至
says,
那个就是大乘的这个佛教的一个偈颂，就是听闻的话
even
呢，那么
upon
就是
hearing
除了
one
无间罪
stanza
的，
of the
除
Mahayana
了
Sutra
无间罪的人以
before
外呢，就是不
dying,
会什么就是堕入这个三恶趣
people
啊，
with
这些
the
都是很有
5
很有意义的。
inexpiable misdeeds can be stoned.
好像好多都是女的。
Why so many female?
只有一个男的，这里有，
Only 1, 2 men?
这里有一个，
3?
那边有一个。
And fourth one there.
我看男总举个手。
Can all the men raise your hands?
下面女总举手。
Now women.
原来是这样的世界。
What a world.
那怎么办呢？
What should we do?
这样的。接下来就是我们像刚才就是讲。
So the kind of people who have conducted the 5 inexpiable misdeeds can be spared from the lower realm as well. Anyhow, the death that we experienced so many times in the samsara really doesn't have any meaning before. Until now, this death, you can make it meaningful. So at that time, having contemplated in this way, reflect that there is not a single condition phenomena, including within the internal or external, or the past, present, or future, that is immune to impermanence. Everything is impermanent. You can see it and you can observe it and you know it. The nature of arising and ceasing, even for a single instant, within the category of the conditions, there are those things with whose continuum ceases after a short time, such as some small insects, or even some infants who were born in the morning, and some of them would die at night. But compared to that, compared to the water bubbles or bolts of lightning, there are also those whose continuum cease after a long period of time, such as the realms of this world. It is longer, but whether they abide for a long period of time or short period of time, all conditioned things must cease in the end, and there is no one that is unchanging. You know this, isn't it? Everything is impermanent. Life is impermanent. That is why all the sentient and all the material world will eventually cease. And there's no world, the entire world of vessel and its content, the environment and its inhabitants will also disintegrate. And if even the Tathagata and transcendent conqueror demonstrated death in the manner of passing into nirvana, then what need is there to speak of the mundane beings that's like us? As the Tathagata said, everything conditioned is impermanent. This is the summary. There's a sutra is called the Meditation Samadhi Sutra. It says that the world, whether if it's big or small, there's nothing that is permanent. None of those would abide for a long period of time, and everything appears just like bolts of lightning. So in this world, this is the truth of it. So when we then come to the time of our death, we should really prepare for it. Nowadays, whether it's radiation or some chemicals, cancer, some of garbage food. Our world is full of different conditions that would cause death. Even for young people, they could catch some kind of illness really soon, and there's nothing that could save them, and there's really nothing that they can do. So at that moment, do not feel that why me, and do not think that why am I dying now? But he's not dying yet. It's not my turn. So at that time, do not consider that your death has anything to do with other people's lives. But not understanding the nature of conditions like this, being averse to separation and death, and delighting in generating and in gathering and birth. Usually that's how we feel about all the phenomena that happens, all the events happening in our life. We really don't like divorce or dying. We really like partying and birthdays. But really, the day of your birth is the day that marks your steps towards death. So yes, on one hand you can say happy birthday, but is it happy birthday or happy suffering? In the samsara, it's hard to say. So sentient beings remain in samsara, circling around again and again. Yet I shall take my own death when it comes as a teacher, a virtuous spiritual friend, and will realize from the depth of my heart how conditioned things are impermanent. So it's quite important to practice and contemplate up on impermanence all the time. It is quite important to visualize the Buddha at the time of death, and there's another method. The method, what is that method? The method is to then make the aspiration, thinking that I will decide on this with certainty. Think earnestly like this at the time of death, in all future lifetimes, until I attain the essence of awakening by understanding everything conditioned to be impermanent. May I not become attached to a conditioned object of experience, and may I then always understand the truth of impermanence for lifetimes, and for that, Guru, Lord of Sages, victorious ones, and your heirs, I supplicate you, grant your blessing that it may be so. If we can then make such aspiration the time of death, and contemplate like such, practice like such, then our practice will succeed. I can remember where I read this story. There was a couple living in Vaishali. They had really wonderful, happy life together. They had a good relationship. And then the wife died first. The husband, after his wife's passing, he then got ordained and then went to a monastery. Because of the wife's merit of believing in the three jewels and generated virtue and merit during lifetime, he then was reborn in the Trimsha heaven, the 33 heaven. And being reborn there as a celestial being, the wife couldn't really find another suitable husband in the celestial realm. And she then one day used her divine eye and looked at what her husband was doing, and her husband was then cleaning and sweeping the floor of monastery. And then she also, through her divine eye, she noticed that these merits that the husband generated could then help him to reborn in the same 33 heavenly realm. And so she descended to the earth again and then told him that, well, if you continue to practice this way, then you could be reborn in the 33 heaven, and then we can be husband and wife again. Upon hearing this, and the husband continued to practice very diligently, and he generated enough merit of passing the 33 heaven and be reborn on the higher level of celestial realm. And then the wife noticed, saying that, well, I guess your level is much higher than me now. And he, upon hearing this, and continued to practice very diligently, again with meditation and so on, and within one lifetime he attained arhathood. So practice, if you have great aspiration, if you have great longing, your destination will continue to change based on your practice. This is probably the best, that you continue to pursue a higher goal, and that will help you to accumulate more merit. Just as in the 100 karmic stories, where it told the story of how a person was supposed to be reborn as a dog, but because of the merit that he accumulated before death, upon hearing his destination, his fate, he then practiced and then was later on reborn in pure realm. So for practitioners like us, what we should do is, of course, it's very difficult for us to completely cut off all the unreasonable deeds, or all the misdeeds, but at least what you could do is to cut down all of those misdeeds that you used to do, to decrease them, such as lots of people used to order the live animals and kill them and eat them. And nowadays, at least you become vegetarian, it will help you in the way to then stop your previous misdeeds. Therefore, whatever changes, positive changes you can do in this lifetime, then you should do it so that it will help you in your future destination after death. I really want to say that lots of our people over here, they provide a service. When I contemplate on it myself, I really think that it's really difficult to serve that many people who come over here, and to serve many different people, different kinds of people. It's very tiring, and but just by serving one person, it could generate a great merit, and therefore it is quite important to make such aspiration and supplicate to the Bodhisattva so that they can grant us blessings, and we will be able to accomplish. Then, as it is said in the Mahayana Sutra, the Noble Wisdom of Passing, where it says that since all phenomena are naturally pure, meditate on the concept of non-entity, fully endowed with bodhicitta. The passages will explain this part. Meditate on the concept of great compassion, since the nature is unseeable luminosity. Meditate on not being attached to anything at all. Mind is the cause for arising of the wisdom. Do not search for the Buddha elsewhere. The Tibetan version of these verses are a little bit different. In Tibetan version, also talked about the uncharacteristic aspect, but the rest of the verses are really the same. The content of these verses are then explained. Last year, when I was teaching, I forgot that these verses were included in this teaching. Last year, when I was given teaching on these, or 2 years ago when I was teaching on the Noble Wisdom of Passing, I forgot that Mipa Rinpoche gave a teaching over here. Anyhow, I think next time when it's your turn, you should remember that Mipa Rinpoche gave really great explanations. Focus on all sentient beings who cling to impermanence, impermanent condition of things as permanent, and painful samsara as pleasure, and experience death and endless varieties of suffering. Nowadays, what we see are permanent. We take them as permanent, although everything is really impermanent. Let's see, our career, our houses, our relationship, and so on, they're all impermanent, but we grasp onto them. Lay practitioners over here, I see that nowadays they're quite going with the flow. I'm not sure if they're grasping on permanence or impermanence. They're not prepared to travel at all. They don't even know where they're going to stay. They have no luggage or they have very little luggage, and then they just came to here. That's it. Too spontaneous. But I know in the West, the centers as a practitioner, you have to apply to the centers, make your registration, you know where you're going to stay, you should know where you're going to eat and where you're going to sleep, if you should have tents and so on. But people come here, they're very spontaneous. It seems like they are very ready to rely upon our people over here to serve them. Generating a mind of a great compassion, think in such a way, in order to free these sentient beings who are suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death, and lead them to unsurpassable, perfect awakening. These kind of sentient beings are really pitiful because they grasp onto what's impermanent as permanent, and they hold on to it and suffer gravely from them. May I become the protector of the three worlds, Buddha, a transcendent conqueror, and free all sentient beings from their endless suffering. If I have not attained the fruition of Buddhahood, then how can I benefit all sentient beings? Just when you look at all the sentient beings who are suffering, but you can't not really help them at all. Just as when people see lots of others who are suffering from poverty, then first of all, you need to make the aspiration of generating wealth so that you can help them. But there are people who, after gained enough money, they forgot about their aspiration of helping others. But Buddha is not like that at all. You should then generate and then meditate on the concept of great compassion endowed with bodhicitta. So this passage then explains the first verse of the Noble Wisdom Passing Sutra that's listed above. You should then have the great compassion and the bodhicitta to give such kind of motivation and then help others. The second passage then explains the second verse, which says that similarly, when you examine all phenomena, as exemplified by this death, you'll find that they are by nature empty. And yet, by conceptualizing through the force of mere imputation, we create happiness, suffering, and benefit and harm, all of these kind of feelings. I think in my audience, you must have a very deep feeling of deep experience of it, because all of our suffering comes from our conceptualization and dualism. In these phenomena, really, if these phenomena really existed, there would be no so-called death and suffering at all. Now it's really profound, this part. I don't think you can digest it right away. But digest it slowly. You should read it again and again after our class. Just as when you get a whole bag full of prescription drugs from hospital, then you have to take it 1 or 2 pills a day rather than take it all the time. Mipa Rinpoche's language is just like that. It's very condensed. Pontso Rinpoche often say that Mipa Rinpoche's teaching has the inner, outer, and secret meanings. It has such profundity at the same time. It's so simple and so much practical pith instruction within it. So it's quite useful. So why is death not not truly existed? Now it explains in such a way, thinking in such a way, all phenomena are unreal. Decide that this is the case and reflect. Likewise, all these phenomena, including death, have no established identity whatsoever. Yet, like illusory appearances, their expression is completely unobstructed. When analyzed, they cannot be expressed in terms of extremes of existence or non-existence. They are naturally non-conceptual and luminous. So non-conceptual or emptiness and luminous, that is the nature of our own mind as well as all phenomena. Therefore, there is neither empty nor luminosity. So, as a Buddhist, like what I said yesterday, I really think that lots of you have great faith. I see lots of new faces. I saw some familiar faces who show up lots of times. But compared to what we used to have, I think nowadays what we have is much better than before. It's a good progress, but we still need to continue to progress along the path. In fact, not only Buddhism, you have to do that. All of the teaching, all of the knowledge in the world should make such a progression as well. If you want to increase your wisdom, otherwise, without wisdom, you're just very blind. So, as Buddhists, let it be Sutrayana or Vajrayana, I think nowadays our Buddhists are studying quite diligently, and the wisdom really developed compared to a decade or 2 decades ago. And lots of the elites are participating in our Sangha, and they definitely invest a lot of their time to study. During the study, do not just think that, oh, I listened to it because certain teachers said so. Don't do that. Rather, you should really taste the teaching of Dharma. The previous masters who composed all these wonderful texts, each of them have infused their experiences with it. Therefore, we should take the time to taste their Dharma. There are people who have accumulated great merit in the past and a good connection to certain Dharma. Therefore, they taste faster, and there are the ones who taste slower. But eventually, you will taste it if you really invest your effort. So at first, you should observe. You'll be able to see that everything is illusory-like and dream-like. And then you continue to observe it, and you see that the mind is really empty and luminous. There is nothing to grasp onto. The mind does not abide as any entity or non-conceptual thing whatsoever. Is primordially luminous. Is a state of present direct awareness. Of all phenomena of samsara and nirvana are totally equal. Emptiness and luminosity is what we repeat the most in Vajrayana teaching. So for those of you who have such backgrounds, then you should really contemplate on this. And then decide, therefore, that the enlightened mind of the teacher, Lord of Sages, Shakyamuni Buddha, and your own mind are indivisible within the nature of mind. So, our mind and Shakyamuni Buddha's mind in the nature is not two. The state of self-existing wakefulness is without getting distracted from that state. You come to possess confidence and develop certainty in it. that is a realization of the true nature of your own mind. I think this part is only for people who had some deep insights or realization. Then you'll be able to understand what this passage is talking about. This is rather quite profound. For those of you who study the Sutra of the sixth patriarch, then you probably have a little glimpse of understanding of it too. Other than that, there's no so-called Buddha whatsoever. In the state, in that state, there is neither death nor birth. Death and the birth are mere concepts. In the truth of innate nature of mind free from concepts, birth and death are not established in any way. If you were to pass away while resting evenly in such a state, you will be reborn in Buddha field without experiencing the deluded appearances of intermediate state, such as the horrifying images that may occur during Bardo and Hell Realm and so on. You won't experience that at all, but directly be reborn in Buddha field. If you do not have such level of confidence, however, but still remember only the Shakyamuni Buddha at the time of death and throughout the intermediate state without forgetting, then that will be enough to lead you to pure realm. This is such a very important piece instruction because this is very simple. This is the easiest way to do at the time of death. Just at the time of death, if you can just remember and have great confidence of Lord Buddha or Amitabha, then you will be able to, and that will be enough to lead you to a pure realm. That's why it's quite important for us to chant the Buddha's name and chant the Bodhisattva's name at the deathbed of the people. When I was staying in the hospital getting my treatment, I often feel quite glad to go to people who are about to die and would chant. I would go and chant the mantra for them voluntarily. Some really don't like me doing that, and some really want me to do so. There's a nurse in one of the Chengdu's hospital where I stayed. One of the nurses really doesn't like me because she doesn't want me to chant those mantras, especially during the time where all the doctors and nurses were gathered around of the deathbed of the patient. Anyhow, I would do the same. It's quite important for people who are facing death. Doesn't matter they used to be wealthy, they used to be of high status or fame. They had to let go of all of those things. So death is really quite scary, just as how in the treasure of Pith instruction of Longchenpa, where it says at the second half of the book, it has the verses on how when the time of death comes, you have to give up all the things that you have anyways, your clothing, your appearance, your body even. So at that time, chanting and recitation, group chanting and recitation of Buddha name is quite important to remind the person at the time of death. Just as whenever we want to go to a different country, we have to prepare passports and so on.
这个十尊手帕呢，还是有很多神圣的这个意义啊。
In the Shakyamuni Buddha's sadhana, it definitely has quite profound meaning. Therefore, I really hope that the Dharma teachers could give teachings on this, even if you have 1 day of 1 or 2 days of your weekly class, take that time to teach it. That would be wonderful. Moreover, no matter what terror and suffering you face in this life, if you remember the Buddha, you will certainly be liberated from any trouble. We constantly talk about how medicine Buddha could help you out when you are sick, how Avalokiteshvara is compassionate Idam, but Shakyamuni Buddha, it doesn't matter what kind of suffering or whatever obstacle you're going through, you can get over of those just by supplicating to Shakyamuni Buddha. Whatever happiness and excellent fortune you enjoy, know it to be the great kindness of the Buddha, and visualizing the sources of the pleasure as an offering cloud of Samadabhadra, present them to the Buddha. Whatever happiness you have, then you can offer it to your guru and to Shakyamuni Buddha. Whatever joy you have, you should contemplate it in such a way that this is all the blessings of Shakyamuni Buddha as well as the guru. Constantly reflect on the meaning of the 3 liberation and 6 paramitas and other topics the Buddha taught. With great compassion for all sentient beings, generate the mind of supreme enlightenment and train as much as you can in the conduct of bodhisattvas. Recalling the teacher like this is extremely important. Constantly remembering the Buddha like this is extremely important. For it is by recalling the Buddha that we first set out on the Bodhisattva path. It thus has immeasurable benefits. So I really hope that you should build this habit of visualizing Shakyamuni Buddha or remembering Shakyamuni Buddha. Because when you do that, it is the foundation of a bodhisattva's path. Because you can't attain anything if you were just studying like a scholar. So you have to really constantly remembering and thinking of the Buddha. I see lots of newcomers here. You don't really hold malas with you. Do you all have malas? Should I ask the ones who don't have a mala to raise your hand? You should have it, okay? All right, you don't have to. Oh, you have all those counters, isn't it? If our mind is remembering and thinking of the Buddha, then it generates all the excellent qualities of the path. If we constantly practice on the visualization of Shakyamuni Buddha, on the Guru Yoga, and then all the merits and all the benefits will naturally be generated. Why are there people who are good practitioners and there are people who are terrible practitioners and going worse? It is really because that they didn't really build a firm foundation. I see that there are people in the Sangha who, after staying in the monastery for a longer period of time, they only developed more wrong views. But there are people who practiced just the same throughout throughout the decades. At first, they were like that, and then they are still like that, still have the same faith that they started with, or even deeper. So I really hope that the beginners, please do not to be so enthusiastic and passionate about the devotion and about seeing the guru. Do not then decline from a peak. It is best to develop slowly. And then reach some of them. They went from the peak of devotion all the way of touching the red bottom line. That's not great. So it's quite important to constantly visualizing, constantly thinking of, remembering the Buddha and the Guru in such a way that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will definitely grant you blessings, as well as the protectors will grant you protection. And it generates all excellent qualities of the path. What kind of qualities? Qualities such as wisdom, such as the wisdom of non-duality, of kindness and compassion, and so on. And that will help you to go along the path. So, for people who take great importance of what lineage means, I really hope you could carry the Shakyamuni Buddha's image, even if you are traveling for 3 days. It's really not that expensive nowadays. You can carry a small image of him, of the Shakyamuni Buddha. For lots of you, I think that you change too fast. Especially the Chinese, you change too fast. Unlike lots of the Westerners, maybe at the first they're not so enthusiastic to begin with, but they would steadfast to develop their faith, and they become very very steadfast in their faith and devotion afterwards. These days, when everyone believes their own school's tenets, such as Theravada, such as the Han tradition, the Tibetan tradition, so everyone believes in their own school tenets. Even within Tibetan Buddhism, there's a Gelugpa, there's Nyingma, and so on. Oh, I study from this guru, and you study from the other guru. Yes, there are slight differences. But when everyone believes their own school tenets to be the most important, only a few people pay much attention to the teacher. That is our Lord of Sages, the Shakyamuni Buddha. Lots of people only place great importance to talk about their guru. My guru is the most wonderful, but they don't really talk about their true and the foremost teacher, that is Shakyamuni Buddha. I don't think it's good to have this kind of a personality cult of gurus. This is not good to just worship certain individuals. Let's see what Christianity and what other religions do is that they have great faith towards their teacher to begin with, the first teacher to begin with. So we should really then have more understanding and more study towards Shakyamuni Buddha. Otherwise, without understanding the past stories of Shakyamuni Buddha, without knowing the biography, without knowing the merits of the Shakyamuni Buddha who started Buddhism, then it's quite beautiful, isn't it? Why? Because it is solely due to the teacher's compassion in demonstrating his enlightened deeds in this place. And time for us wandering beings of this degenerate age that teaching have appeared. If it's not Shakyamuni Buddha who then out of compassion to teach the deluded beings like us. All the other Buddhas build their Pure Lands elsewhere, and there's no. And how about us? Us, the mundane beings who are still who are still dwelling in this suffering samsara. Without the Buddha, we don't even have any condition to be liberated at all. And that means not only the three Pitakas, but all the teachings up to and including those of sacred Mantrayana, the path that can bring about a unified state of no more learning in this one short lifetime in this degenerate age. It is also solely due to his compassion that there are beings who hold these teachings, those who have entered the teaching of Sutra and Mantra and the Sangha of noble beings. Without the teacher, that is Shakyamuni Buddha, we don't have the Pitakas, we don't have the Triyanas, we don't have the Mantrayana, we don't have the Sutrayana or Mantrayana, we don't have any, we won't be able to then step onto the path. Without Shakyamuni Buddha, we don't have all the past masters, we don't have the Vajrayana teachings, we don't have the Pitakas, and all of these said above come from Shakyamuni Buddha. If the teacher had not really light of teaching here in this realm, at this time we would not hear even so much of the sound of three jewels. So what need to speak of then of practicing the path of sutra and mantra? Therefore, whichever tradition we practice, whether it is from the new school or old school, to have the intense faith that holds the teacher as especially important is indispensable at all times. We must therefore be especially devoted to the teacher and persevere in this form of yoga. I know that I translated the biography of Shakyamuni Buddha for a long period of time, but I really think that after reading it, you will develop a sense of deep gratitude and then have deep and steadfast faith. Let it be you coming from Theravada tradition or Han Buddhism tradition or Tibetan Buddhism tradition or any kind of tradition or different tenets or different lineage that you're following. In fact, sometimes I think it's not really good to separate ourselves depending on different schools or different lineages that you follow. Sometimes we really have lots of division. We say that, oh, I'm from Nyingma and I'm from Galupa, and when the other person is not from that school, then that person will be like, no, you're from a different school. No, I can't do that. This kind of division and grasping towards lineages is not necessary, because all these lineages and the schools are teachings. They are teaching the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. I actually rather see that lots of Theravada masters are very inclusive. When I went to Thailand, the Yunnan province, as well as other places where they had Theravada tradition, where we used to really look down on them, isn't it? We used to think that, wow, the Theravada, they are Shravakas. Back in the 1990s, when I first went to Thailand for the first time, I wrote it in my diary saying that at first I thought all the Shravakas or all the Theravada practitioners there must be very, very stubborn. But I was really stunned to see how inclusive and how open-hearted and open-minded they are. Rather than that, when I went to Han places, the mainland China places, and that's so-called Mahayana monasteries, I myself sometimes feels, well, I'm a little afraid of that because he probably feels that I'm not from the same lineage and so on. Anyhow, in general, what I really want to say is that we are all disciples of Shakyamuni Buddha. Do not separate yourself as you're a disciple of this Lama and the other person is a disciple of the other Lama. Therefore, you started your trade war or technological war. This is not necessary and not meaningful. So Buddhists, I really hope that when it comes to you, do not hold on to your own teacher, your own lineage. Do not have the solid grasping, the solid afflictions. We must therefore be especially devoted to the teacher Shakyamuni Buddha and persevere in this form of yoga. We have another singer over here today. So this particular sadhana was practiced in this monastery on the lunar calendar 15th and 30th only, so twice a month. But I really think after I came back from Xiamen, I then suggested that we should chant this sadhana every day in my class. So some felt that it's my own preference. Lots of people, they only chanted because it's my class and to please me, but not really that they want to chant it. In fact, upon observing such kind of mentality, I noticed, well, this is why I should teach this sadhana, because we have too much dualistic thoughts and grasping towards different lineage and different gurus, and we forgot that we're all disciples of the Buddha. And with the blessings of Mipa Rinpoche, I think we will be able to then unite ourselves. Today it's going to last a bit longer. Ah. 下面有几个译文啊，就是这个本波仁波切当时这样的这个译文，如果有人这样想。Continue to say that, well, there are a few people who could have this and different thinkings. Some others may think, even if it is not teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, but Buddha in another form, such as Vajrasattva or Medicine Buddha, or other forms, such as the Vajrachana, and Sambhogakaya Buddha, can I then practice upon different types of forms? rather than Shakyamuni Buddha, as a renunciator free from attachment, for example, or a peaceful or wrathful idiom, and so on. What difference does it make as long as we feel devotion? Why do I have to have devotion towards Shakyamuni Buddha then? So to such kind of questions, then Mipa Rinpoche answered in such a way, saying that essentially there is no difference, since all the Buddhas are the wisdom kaya, perfect equality. It is one taste in the Dhammakaya. And there is no distinction in their qualities of abandonment and realization. There's no differentiation of the medicine Buddha, of Shakyamuni Buddha, or Vajrasattva. Their merits are exactly the same. But there are then some kind of differences. Although there is no distinction in their qualities of abandonment and realization, yet from the perspective of a relative level of mere appearance, it is due to the Shakyamuni Buddha's compassion that the visualization and recitations of idiom deities of different schools, all their peaceful and wrathful forms are the path and training emerged in the first place. Shakyamuni Buddha is the fourth Buddha in our Kalpa. And relying upon the compassion of Shakyamuni Buddha, it then is the manifestation of peaceful and wrathful forms. Therefore, just as the sources of all the water in Jambudvipa is Lake Manasarovar, in this Lake Manasarovar is close to Ganges Mountains, and Jambudvipa usually refers to India. So what it means is that the center of Jambudvipa, rather India, is the Vajra seat, and all the water of the that goes to there are from the mountain, snow mountain. Some would say that this Manasarovar is one of the is called the Maponyunso in Tibetan language, and Sakya Pandita then disagree with it because the shape of the lake is different. Deity, protector, Dakini, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are no other than they all come from the source that is Shakyamuni Buddha. And all appearances of the greater and lesser teaching of the practices of the path of sutra and mantra are certainly a result of this Shakyamuni Buddha's compassion. Just as when you supplicate your own root guru, you receive more blessings than by supplicating other gurus. So when you're supplicating your own guru, your own root guru, who's from your same lineage and who cares for you, and then definitely that blessing will come much swifter and much faster and powerful than supplicating to other gurus. Because of the power of your connection, supplicating, then the teacher Shakyamuni Buddha brings swifter blessing than supplicating any other Buddha. That's the reason why we should practice Shakyamuni Buddha, because Shakyamuni Buddha has a much closer connection to all of us, and he is the source of all the Buddhas and all different idioms. Therefore, upon supplicating to Shakyamuni Buddha, you'll receive the swift and powerful blessing. So all these kind of metaphors, I really think you should contemplate it as much as possible, because just think about it. When you receive teachings and when you consider this teacher is your root guru, such as when I supplicate to Pontsuk Rinpoche, I swiftly feel his blessings. And sometimes there are teachers, they're wonderful masters. I myself would consider they're wonderful teachers, but by supplicating them, the blessing doesn't come as swift because there are differences between the different kind of connections. I therefore really encourage you to contemplate upon such metaphor. The second aspect is that another then asked, well, does that mean I should focus solely on the Lord of Sages and stop supplicating other Buddhas? So this person saying that, okay, then fine, I'll only practice Shakyamuni Buddha and no other Buddhas else. Then I can just practice on one. Well, it is because different people have different capacities. So over here it says that, but it's not like that. Understand that whichever idiom you might supplicate is no different in reality from the teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, since it is taught that all Buddhas are equal in Dharmakaya. Samadabhadra, or those idioms from Tibetan Buddhism and Han Buddhism. In fact, there are no other than Shakyamuni Buddha in the equanimity in Dharmakaya. You must understand this point to think the Supreme Teacher manifests a different bodily appearance at this and that idiom deity, showing himself to be a refuge and friend to us all, the wandering being of this degenerate age. This is quite important because we would then maybe visualize a wrathful being and then later a peaceful being. But you have to understand that they are of equanimity in Dharmakaya. If you nevertheless separate the teacher and your idiom and give up on your teacher, believe the idiom to be somehow separate, this will make it difficult for accomplishment to arise. So that's the second question. Not much left. Let's finish it, okay? The third question is saying that similarly, in the tradition of unsurpassable sacred mantra in the Vajrayana, the Vajra Guru, who is the Vajra Master, is in essence inseparable from all the Buddhas of the three times. And the Guru's manifestation is of even greater kindness than the Buddhas of three times. Since without the Guru, even though the Buddhas of the three times are present, you will not receive blessings and accomplishment. Of course, the Buddhas of three times are present, but if the Guru is not present, then how can you receive the teachings from the Buddhas? This means even if you make an offering to just a simple pour of the Guru's body, it is much more noble than making offering to the Buddhas of the three times. All the Vajratantra scriptures state repeatedly that simply by succeeding in pleasing the Guru, you will please all the Buddhas of three times and receive their blessings. For this reason, the Guru is known as complete embodiment of three jewels, or known as the fourth jewel. So understand, therefore, that the Guru is more powerful than Buddha of past, present, and future. So what he means is that, well, this person is asking and saying that, well, according to the view of Vajrayana, then we can just practice Guru Yoga. Why to practice Shakyamuni Buddha? There are lineages and schools which only placed emphasis on practicing Guru Yoga and don't even care about the sadhana of Shakyamuni Buddha at all. That's a little too extreme as well. You might wonder if there's anything superior to Guru Yoga and such practices. The answer is that there certainly is not. Although in the tradition of sacred mantra, there is no practice for entering the door of blessings, no dharma superior to the profound dharma of the Guru Yoga. The Guru who teaches us the sacred mantra is the fact, an emanation of the teacher, the Lord of Sages, Shakyamuni Buddha. In the section of sutra about nirvana, it says that do not despair, Ananda, do not lament, Ananda. In the future, I will manifest as virtuous spiritual friends and act for your own and others' benefit. Since they have practiced the path of sutra and mantra that were taught out of compassion of the teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, the gurus are also the offspring born from Shakyamuni's speech. The guru endowed with the experience and realization is the heart son or heart daughter who has received the blessings of the relative and absolute bodhicitta of the teacher's enlightened mind stream. This means that whatever guru yoga you practice, you must understand the guru to be inseparable from the teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Not only that, you must understand that the guru is not separate from whichever idiom you meditate on. Today, it's a little bit long. It's quite important though, therefore do not feel too tiresome.
了知以上释迦牟尼佛的这样的恩德之后呢，我们对释迦牟尼佛产生极大的
acknowledge the great kindness of
他无二无别的上师本尊啊，就是并且呢念诵我们那个师尊。Acknowledge
the great kindness of teacher of the past to be supremely devoted to him, having understood the gurus, idioms, and so on are inseparable from Shakyamuni Buddha. Whichever guru, whichever yoga of visualization and recitation you practice, be it the guru of idiom, it is certain that you will gain great accomplishment. Then, when you visualize and recite based on the practice of recollection of Shakyamuni Buddha, then you must realize and recite all the devotion of understanding that not only the sublime gurus who teach the Dharma of Sutra and Mantra, but all the three jewels of three times are two actually embodied within the Buddha. So, although there's in the context of sutra merely recollecting the Buddha is considered the most important, it is also quite all right to meditate on the Buddha and be or as being indivisible from the Guru, yet it is not absolutely necessary because simply recalling the Buddha will accomplish this aim. You could do that, it's not necessary, it's not absolutely necessary, that's what it means. That why is that? When you are calling upon recalling the Buddha, then you will be able to accomplish all the aim. In Sutrayana, there is no combining the Buddha and the Guru together, or make sure that when you visualize how the Buddha then dissolve, or how your teacher dissolve, or how the form is then invisible from the nature. So over here it says that you don't necessarily have to combine your Guru and the Buddha Shakyamuni together. It's not absolutely necessary, but of course you can do that when you recite Buddha's name. Buddha is called Lama, which means the root teacher. The Chinese translation may sound a little bit odd, therefore I translated it in the way that the Chinese student would feel more comfortable with. But in fact, the name is just Lama, is Guru, that's what it means. But in Chinese, when we talk about teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, everyone would understand. But when you talk about Lama Shakyamuni Buddha, then you feel a little bit odd about it. And over here, Mipa Rinpoche explained why he calls it Lama. Because Buddha is the Guru of three worlds. That is why it is not an appropriate name for the Buddha. But if you understand it as a sign, that the Buddha is indivisible from whichever Guru you have faith in, that is also all right. In any case, even if you practice, on one hand, you can practice in the Sutrayana way or the Vajrayana way, such as you practice in the way that you see Shakyamuni Buddha is no other than your teacher. Then in such a way, then you can call Shakyamuni Buddha as your Lama Shakyamuni Buddha. In Tibetan, when chanting this, it says Lama Shakyamuni Buddha. That's why Mipa Rinpoche then explained it in such a way. During the sadhana practice, you can practice just up on visualizing Shakyamuni Buddha, or you could practice it in such a way as that the nature of Shakyamuni Buddha is your teacher, and the appearance is Shakyamuni. The nature of Shakyamuni Buddha is your guru, and then the appearance is Shakyamuni Buddha. Since the guru, him or herself, is the essence, is the essential embodiment of all the Buddhas, then whichever Buddha you meditate on, and in whichever form, there is no contradiction. It is in the nature of things that blessings too will arise in accordance with your own devotion. And then the next part, it has some short verses. We will also explain it. Although we didn't finish the whole text of biography of Shakyamuni Buddha, at least we should then complete the teaching of the practice chapter. So over here at the end it says that it's Mipa Rinpoche who humbly saying that I myself am a mundane being who is fettered by afflictions. Mipa Rinpoche is rather very humble compared to Longchenpa, who would praise extensively about himself at the end of any composition. Longchenpa would say that would have said that I am the wisdom space that has so and so on. That's what he would compose about this. For the Buddha, whose truthful words once praised and said that whomsoever have heard the name of Shakyamuni Buddha would then attain the Bodhi, attain the unregressed Bodhi. Even the animals whomsoever hears the name of Shakyamuni Buddha, they will also be on the path of no regression. Now we should consider ourselves as really meritorious because we have the eye faculty where we can see the image of the Buddha. We can use our ear faculty to then hear the name of Shakyamuni Buddha. We can use our nose faculty or taste faculty or the tongue faculty, but anyhow, we can use our body, our touch to our body to touch the image or the statue of the Buddha. So sometimes, although we consider ourselves as mundane beings who are deluded beings who are full of afflictions, but at least we've already heard the name of the Buddha. We've already now on the path of Buddhism. See, for those of you who see, we at least can see the Shakyamuni Buddha statue. Without auspicious connection, we won't be able to even see it. The incredible source of merit. This is the blessings from. This all comes from the blessings of the Tathagata. This sadhana of Shakyamuni Buddha should be practiced by the wise ones diligently. May this sadhana, which is composed out of a pure intention. I think at that time when I translated this, I finished translating around May the 3rd, and I was staying in the hospital for treatment. But in the afternoon, I went to the Minai Buddhist monastery, which is not too far from the hospital. I started translating the extensive biography of Shakyamuni Buddha back in 2001 in December 25th, and finished the whole translation in on May the 3rd, 2002. At that time, Khenpo Norba and another Chinese Khenpo was helping me to then transcribing my translation. And at that time, we had noodles every day, the kind of handmade noodles that you have to stretch it. So I remember that after translation, after proofreading, that was then completely finished at Minnan Buddhist Academy. I purposely went there to finish the whole thing. So today we finished this whole chapter of practice.